Hey folks, welcome back to Canada's Boxing Channel. It's Saturday. It's Saturday the 29th of November. And I've just watched the British Heavyweight Championship fight between the favourite, Fraser Clarke, and the challenger. Well, I guess not technically challenger because it was a vacant title, but his opponent, Jeamie Jeamie TKV, as he likes to be introduced. And thank God for that, because I always struggle with his last name, just like everybody else, I suppose. Anyhow, the good news, if you manage to bet on the underdog, is that Jeamie TKV is the new British heavyweight champion. I had predicted Fraser Clarke to win on points, but I did put a cheeky $5 on the underdog simply because the odds were much better. And there we go. I turned $5 into $25. So I got my prediction wrong, but hey, I managed to put a little bit of money in my pockets. What can we say about this fight? First of all, it was the first fight for many years it's been broadcast on the BBC Two. I actually saw it on one of those somewhat sketchy YouTube uploads. You know, those channels that appear out of nowhere, and they carry a fight, which was great because there was no other way for me to watch it. I was talking to my friend Lee from Inside the Distance during the fight. I was a few rounds behind the live as he was watching it, so we were kind of chatting back and forth. Always good to do that. And by the way, if you haven't visited Lee's channel, please give it a watch. So where do we start? Well, Fraser Clarke looked very good. He weighed in at 270 pounds, which is a little bit less than he's weighed in before. It's he's weighed in as high as 276. So he weighed in at 270. I thought he looked good. Jeamie TKV isn't blessed with good genetics. You know, he doesn't look good. He weighed in at 265, which is a little bit heavier than where I've seen him weigh before, but yeah, not too much. To be perfectly honest, I think both fighters should have weighed in a lot less. I'm one of those people that, I don't see the point in a heavyweight boxer weighing more than about 250. But that's me, right? Even if you're tall, even if you're 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", 250 is big enough to put down anybody, and you're unlikely to be gassing out. But people seem these days to like to be bigger and better. But what that really means is that they tend to be sluggish and slow. And that's the story of this fight. Fraser Clarke, when he was on his toes and working off a jab, looked good. But a lot of it was messy and ugly. A lot of it was hugging. A lot of it was, getting into the pocket with Jeamie TKV, who was very good on counterpunching in that area. Fraser Clarke, I thought, seemed to gas out. Now, if he'd weighed in at 250, would he have had more spring in his step? Hard to say with any degree of certainty, but that extra 20 pounds, it's a weight. Likewise, would Jeamie TKV have been better at 235? I always tend to think so. Anyhow, Jeamie TKV did the better work, particularly in close. There was a lot of counters that he was landing on Fraser Clarke. He was penalised in the third round, lost a point for low blow. The ref seemed to be stopping the action a lot of the time. I think, I made a note somewhere, I think it was stopped 5 times. It might have been more, for gum shields coming out. And, I'm the kind of fan, I don't like to see the action being stopped. I like to see the action go its course, right? I mean, that's what I'm wanting to see. I don't like stop, start, stop, start. But this fight was a lot of stop, start, stop, start. It was an untidy fight. You could say it was an attritional fight. You know, there was sort of just grinding each other down. In the 11th round, I think the fight could have legitimately been stopped. I believe there was a towel in Fraser Clarke's corner ready to be launched because it looked to me that Fraser Clarke was done. He managed to sort of wrestle Jeamie TKV between the ropes, which I think probably saved him from the one or two more punches which might have ended Fraser Clarke's campaign today. Fraser Clarke was kind of out on his feet, and I don't think anybody would have said, oh, big problem if it had been stopped. I think a lot of people would say that could have been a legit stoppage. I mean, if you're going to stop Joseph Parker against Fabio Wardley, well, you could have stopped Fraser Clarke against Jeamie TKV. But anyhow, it wasn't stopped. The towel wasn't launched. Fraser Clarke came out for the 12th. If you'd asked him what's 2 + 2, I doubt if you'd have got the answer 4, because he was still kind of out of it in my view. But he managed to get his way through the 12th round, and not only get his way through, he seemed to get his wind back a little bit and cause Jeamie TKV some problems. At the end of the piece, you could say that this was a hard fight to score, because there were a lot of rounds where you could, depending on what you were looking for, say it was a swing round. Now, my sense of it is that the right man won. But it was scrappy, attritional, close. Jeamie TKV did lose a point. The 11th round was not a 10-8. I thought it was good. I thought it was certainly going to be, but it was not. So you could have made a case for Fraser Clarke to have just squeezed it. But I think that most people would say the right man won on the night. This wasn't Fraser Clarke's best night. Fraser Clarke fought a fight that I think he should have fought a different fight. If he'd stayed on his toes, worked off his jab, been more technical, and been a better boxer, which I believe him to be, I think he would have done what the bookies were expecting him to do, which was win a fairly comfortable points victory. But for any number of reasons, one of which, he doesn't have the gas tank. He basically fell into that leaning on each other, and he was taking punches from Jeamie TKV, who was the better man at that kind of work. So I think the scoring was fair. It was a split decision, which indicates again that people are looking at different things. The scores were 115 to 113, 115 to 112. Those were the scores in favour of TKV. And then the score in favour of Fraser Clarke was 112 to 115. So you could see that the judges were looking at slightly different things, but I don't think you can make a big fuss about this. In my view, the better man on the night got the right decision, but I think Fraser Clarke will kick himself for not having fought the fight that a lot of people thought he should have fought. Now, of course, an opponent's always got something to say about what kind of fight you're fighting, right? You don't get to dictate. As Mike Tyson famously said, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. It might have also been that Fraser Clarke was a bit irritated. Jeamie TKV definitely got under his skin a little bit. And so Fraser Clarke might have gone in there with a more of an emotional game plan rather than the cold, dispassionate game plan he probably ought to have had. Where does Jeamie TKV go now? Well, he's British champion. Will he be challenged by Adelaide? Would Adelaide want to go back to the British title? Probably not. Does he take on the winner of... Does Moses Itomo decide he wants to go that route? Dave Allen comes to mind. These are sort of names that sort of come to my mind. I'll be honest, I'm not seeing Jeamie TKV moving up to that next level. I'm not seeing him being a threat at world level. I'm sure he's a super nice fellow. Nothing against him. He did a good job tonight. He should, in my view, be very, very, very happy that he is a British heavyweight champion. Should defend his British belt. Maybe Dave Allen. Maybe Johnny Fisher if he's still floating around. Maybe Solomon Dakers. These are sort of that sort of level of names. More interesting to me is, where does Fraser Clarke go? Now, this might sound harsh, and I don't mean it to be harsh. Fraser Clarke seems an incredibly nice fellow. If I was in a position to be advising Fraser Clarke, I would hope that I would be able to say something like commentating. That's where you need to be at. If Fraser Clarke has many more fights like this, my concern is he's going to end up sounding a little bit like Derek Chisora, or dare I say, Joe Joyce. These kind of blows to the head are cumulative. There's nothing good that can come out of fights like this for him. I think he's probably reached his high water mark, and I think that high water mark might have been the first fight with Fabio Wardley. I think from now on, we would see, win, lose or draw, Fraser Clarke taking a disproportionate amount of punishment. Were I in a position to advise him, I would say, get yourself a nice commentating gig. You've had a fabulous career, Commonwealth gold medal, Olympic bronze medal. You've fought at British championship level. You probably stayed in the amateurs one cycle too long, but hey ho, that was a decision, right? Might have been a mistake, but go dig a hole, put the mistake in there, cover the hole, forget about it, and get a job with one of the broadcasting outfits as a commentator. You make a good living and enjoy the rest of your life. Don't do any more boxing. Would he take that advice? Probably not. I mean, but that's what I would like to see. TKV being a bit younger, yeah, you can defend your title a couple of times. Maybe see if you can win the Lonsdale belts outright. Anyways, hopefully both fellows, they were well paid for tonight, hopefully. They have a good rest, they fully recover, and they provided not a super entertaining fight, but you got to take your hat off to both. They showed a lot of guts, determination. In particular, Fraser Clarke was boxing on fumes. There was no question whatsoever of him taking a knee. They were both brave, gutsy fellows tonight. And like I say, I think the best man won. I think the decision went the right way. But if you're a diehard Fraser Clarke fan, you could see how he could have, like I say, one judge saw it a different way than the other two. Should these two guys have a rematch? I personally don't have any appetite for it. And like I say, I think Fraser Clarke should probably hang them up. But, that's from a perspective of preserving his brain cells rather than anything else. So there we go. That's my take. Have a fabulous day, and please like, share, and subscribe. Talk to you next time. Cheers.